One day, my mom decided to make 설렁탕 for us, which is the beef bone soup with the wheat noodles. But because she couldn't find the janchiguksu, the wheat noodle, she bought the spaghetti noodles and just threw it in there. And that actually became one of our signature dish at Says in Charlie called oxbone pasta because that just brings back my memory.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. David Joonwoo Yoon has a great story to tell. As one of the partners of New York City Korean restaurants Sia's in Charlie and Kisa, he's been at the center of Korean cooking in New York City for a minute. But how did he get here? And how did he and his partners eventually redefine Korean cooking one banchan at a time? We dig into his great story on this terrific episode. I hope you enjoy it. David Joonwoo Yoon, welcome to This Is Taste. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you, Matt, for your time, for inviting me over.
You're absolutely part of the rise of modern Korean cuisine and cooking in restaurants in America. And your two restaurants are really at the top. I mean, just the work you're doing. And so thank you for saying that. Before we get into the show, though, I want to ask you, where are you dining out right now, restaurant-wise, when you're not working at your restaurants? You probably are hitting up some spots.
So the first question is actually going to be the hardest question for me. Now that we have two restaurants on board and they're fairly new. Says in Charlie's only 2 years old. Kisa's 4 months old. So I've been really busy lately. I don't get to go out a lot as often. But thankfully my in-laws are here from Korea. They came here 3 days ago, and I had honored to check out Peter Luger for the first time of my life. And I was a little bit worried, to be honest, because there's living in New York for like 15 years. Everyone says there's a lot of people shit on Peter Luger nowadays, but I was a little bit feared. But it was a place to go if your in-laws are from Korea to USA. So I took him out. I actually had one of the best steak meal ever. So I think. For now, I could say Peter Luger was an amazing experience for me. So,
well, David, I appreciate you saying that. This is not a place that shits on Peter Luger. We love Peter Luger, and we have had, a family member on the program in the past. I love that. And your family from Korea, when they're in town visiting, where are you taking them? Like not just restaurants, but how you showing them New York?
Usually, we do visit a lot of restaurants that are like, maybe, a lot of the tourists go like Grimaldi's, like, Peter Luger, Wolfgang, all those kind of places. But I actually take him around to some of the good Korean restaurants because I believe New York City has one of the diverse and best Korean restaurants in the United States. So, my parents are from Atlanta, Georgia, so there's not much as an option or a variety as what New York offers. So we go to a lot of Korean restaurants. Of course, we do a lot of the tourist stuff as well. We go to like Rockefeller, Central Park, all that stuff. But I think mainly, especially older generation, our parents or my in-laws, they have to have Korean food at least once a day. So yeah. I take him to a lot of Korean restaurants.
Yeah, what's a couple restaurants that pops in your head that you'd want to take him to?
Okdongshik is definitely on the list. Yeah. It's one of my favorite restaurants in New York City. They have just one menu, the daejigomtang, which is a soup. I know they're going to love it already. There's definitely some of the fine dining that, they cannot enjoy in Atlanta, like Atomix, Jungshik, all Naro, like all those good Korean restaurants, or Goat, like Korean barbecue. There's no other Korean barbecue like Goat. So, there's a lot of options out here that, our parents would love.
I love Okdongshik. That's a cool spot. One menu. I think gomtang is such a cool dish.
It's one of the best soup you can ever have.
Let's talk a little bit about your own food history. You grew up in Korea. You were raised in Atlanta, Georgia. So, David, what's food like in your household growing up?
So, mostly it was Korean food at home. My parents would cook Korean food. So actually, a lot of the inspiration of Sia's and Charlie comes from our childhood cooking because when we first came to USA, we lived in Salisbury of Maryland, where there's not much Korean people. There was one tiny Korean supermarket, but that was it. So when we first came here, my parents couldn't speak English. We just went to American supermarket. And, my mom would try to find American ingredients to cook Korean food into. So at the time, it's 2000s, so there wasn't a lot of like Asian ingredients out in the American supermarket like nowadays. So one day my mom decided to make 설렁탕 for us, which is the beef bone soup with the wheat noodle, janchiguksu. But because she couldn't find the janchiguksu, the wheat noodle, she bought the spaghetti noodles and just threw it in there.
Yeah.
And that actually became one of our signature dish at Says and Charlie called oxbone pasta because that just brings back my memory. A lot of those things happen. Like my dad thought the bacons were samgyeopsal, the pork belly, so he bought those and we actually cooked it on the grill with the lettuce.
Oh, yeah.
Bacon on lettuce and samjang's pretty good actually. If you ever have a chance, you should try that combination. It's similar ingredients. So
I love that idea because we think about like samgyeopsal is like an uncured, thicker cut bacon or pork belly, but then using like grocery store bacon with a great samjam.
uh-huh.
I've never like done that. I don't know why it's never come into my head. I love this idea. So cool.
Yeah, my dad was arguing this is samgyeopsal, but as I was tasting it, this tastes very different, Dad. But he's like, this is the same cut of meat, same meat, just have it like samgyeopsal. And that's one of the biggest memory I have when I grew up in Salisbury.
So cool. And let's talk about moving to New York. You end up here and you have a long career before opening these restaurants, working in restaurants. What were some of the restaurant experiences that really informed the way you're running your operation now?
Well, the first restaurant that I ever worked in New York City was called Crystal Belly. Now
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not there anymore, but it was owned by a Korean celebrity named JYP. At the time, I think it was the first upscale Korean barbecue. And Chef David Shim of Goat is actually one of the founding chef of Crystal Belly. So I started as a food runner at the Crystal Belly. And eventually I got my way up to event manager, bar manager, and then a general manager. So that was my first time ever working in the restaurant industry. Honestly speaking, in Korean culture, working in a restaurant isn't something your parents would want you to do. They want you to be doctor, accountant, but I was never book smart. Working in a restaurant, my parents they were not really happy. But as I was working at Belly, I saw that, restaurant industry is more than just serving guests, but there are so many cultures underlying within the industry. Like, get to, participate in James Weir Award Foundation. I got like private catering. We got all the celebrities coming in. So I was thinking, wow, restaurant industry is like more than just a 식당, which is, how Koreans refer a restaurant into. But I don't think there's really a positive meaning behind it. But
Yeah.
I felt like, wow, restaurant is something that there's every aspect in it is something I love to do. Like it involves music, it involves hospitality, involves food, involves interior design, everything. So I was, I fell in love. Crystal Belly was my beginning of the industry, I would say.
It's such a cool moment in time when Crystal Belly opened, which I remember vividly. And really, I love how you lay out your passions, and you're so talented at all the elements because you see it in your restaurants. But let's talk about like JYP having this big music star in Korea, be the owner, I mean, dude, parties. There must have been some parties at Crystal Belly.
We did family outing every night. And the first year was, we did a company outing every night after the shift. And I think that's one of the reasons I loved working at Crystal Belly as well. Back then I was only 23, 22. So, just going out, having drinks, like we rented out a nightclub and just, we were having fun and we meet all this like celebrities. Like I met Leonardo DiCaprio once. Like, it was just crazy for me. Like working in a restaurant, you get to meet with all these people, hang out with these cool people, and you do parties. Like we would end up at Koreatown until 6 in the morning, just drinking soju and barbecue. Fun times.
Super fun times. Let's continue talking about this era that Crystal Belly opened, because at that time, Korean food in New York was still really emerging. There is no, JP and Elia running their restaurants at that time. Barbecue is still the focus. Did you get a sense that there was something special happening in K-Town? And we're talking like 8 years ago around, right?
I definitely saw a movement because when I first landed to New York, Korean food was all about in Koreatown, 32nd Street. But as Crystal Belly opened at 36th Street, I saw all these restaurants like Jungshik at Tribeca. Corey was there at the time. Like there are all these different restaurants that are catering non-Korean market. And I was very amazed to see those kind of movement happening. I just thought that Crystal Belly may have been a little bit faster than how the Korean cuisine is working right now. But I was just shocked to see like there are so many Korean restaurants outside of Koreatown catering to non-Korean U.S. consumers. So, I definitely saw the movement there at the time.
Yeah, and then this leads into Sia's and Charlie opening and really kind of being one of those early, modern Korean American restaurants that took things out of K-Town spiritually, geographically. Tell us a little bit about how you kind of concepted See as in Charlie, and also about the team behind it, because you see you guys are friends. It's
Right.
obvious that you're buddies. These are your close pals, and there's a lot of love there, which I really, really, really respect.
Yes. So shout out to my friends, Steve and Eric. So they're actually one of a couple of my friends that I grew up with since I was 12 years old from Atlanta, Georgia. We all came to New York together because we felt like a frog in a well, not knowing about the ocean in Atlanta. Because we were never book smart. At the time, we were called FOB, which means fresh off the boat. So we never adopted American culture that much while we were in Atlanta, Georgia. So we were sort of those outcasts, even in Korean church. Like, there's English speaking Koreans versus like us speaking Korean. So we never felt we were fitting into American culture. That's why we thought, hey, like if we stay here in Atlanta, we might end up as a dry cleaner owners. That's what most Koreans do for the business at the time. So we're like, hey, let's go to New York and see what there is for out in the world. So we all came to New York with a few $100. So we rented out a small studio. There was five of us at the time, so just one studio,
Wow.
all of us just living there. So we had to make a living while we go to college. So we're just working in restaurants, bars, and communication started there. We're like, hey, like Eric, you like to cook. He always cooked for us. So at home we had different chores. So I did the laundry, Steve did the dishwashing, and Eric did the cooking. So we're like, Eric, you should be a chef one day, maybe.
That's incredible. Tell me about what was Eric making in your studio
So
at the
he
time?
used anything that's in the fridge pretty much
Yeah.
that didn't expire. He would just throw it into a pot, make it into a soup, or a lot of it was mostly simple and humble food. But he would always create something pretty new out of the one of the worst ingredients you can find actually in the fridge and just turning it into a right dish. So
Ah,
we always thought, hey, chef, you should be a chef one day. We called him chef at home.
that's
And now he
amazing.
became a real chef.
Yeah, now he's a real chef of these really successful restaurants. Did he end up going to culinary school, or
He
is it?
did actually.
Okay,
He
cool.
went to ICE.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called
Yeah,
now.
ICE, yeah.
Yeah, he went to ICE, but he actually worked as a line cook with Chef David at Christabelli at the time for about maybe like 6, 7 months, and he realized that the working in the kitchen versus working in the kitchen at home is a little different. So he took different path, and he came back. But that's how we started. And while we opened, while we thought about our first restaurant, um, we had so many ideas, like what we wanted to do. Like once we thought about doing Spanish tapas, like Korean fried chicken, but Kihan of Hand Hospitality. So he's one of our mentor and our role model. He actually sat down with us and he was telling us, you should really think about who you are and like your background and speak that through the restaurant instead of trying to do something that looks cool or is trendy. So we sat we sat down. We talked about the food we ate as we grew up, our shared background in Atlanta, Georgia. So we thought, hey, why don't we just mix Southern and Korean because that's what we grew up eating, Korean food and Southern food. And, they're both soul food. Korea was one of the poor country back in the days right after the Korean War. So, Korean food is mostly with the ingredients that were left over from, U.S. military or Japanese or whatever. And, Southern soul food is also, a lot from the ingredients that are left over from, like chicken thighs or chicken gizzard, those kind of foods. So we thought it was a great mix. It could be a great ingredients that could be mixed together. So that's how we.
So you open Sia's in Charlie, and people go berserk for it. It's a popular restaurant from the get go, and it still operates today, and business is good, I would imagine.
Yes, fortunately, very good. I think 2 years ago, like when we first opened, it was pretty slow for about first 2 months,
Yeah.
and then it picked up really fast. But God bless us, right now it's still very good, very busy. So
So, David, tell me about the menu at Sia's and Charlie and some of the dishes that have now become, iconic for this restaurant.
Right, so I've mentioned about the oxbone pasta. I think all of our dishes are similar in that sense. Like Salisbury steak. So Steve and Eric's parents owned American Deli in Atlanta, Georgia. So they had a lot of the leftover foods, like from the restaurant, such as hamburger patties. So using that, there's a similar dish called 떡갈비 in Korea.
Oh,
It's like a
sure.
Korean emperor cuisine. So their parents made into a 떡갈비 using those patties. So they grew up eating those kind of patties. So Chef Eric turned it into a dish called Salisbury steak, which is one of the very popular dish at Sis and Charlie. I think it's one of the signature dish that represents our restaurant. Um, yeah, turned it into a Salisbury steak with the Gruyere grits. So there's a little bit of Korean, a little bit of Southern, and there's our immigrant history in the dish. So
Let's transition to opening Kisa, which I got to visit early, and from the get go, I recognized a lot of things. I've been to Korea many times, and I recognized a panchan centric meal that has a fixed price. You recognize that a lot from visiting Korea. I recognize also just very, very, very sharp culinary skills and just really understanding how panchan can be kind of substituted in and out by the seasons, but just the creativity you're cooking with there. So, what inspired you to open Kisa also on Houston Street, which is super cool to see a Korean restaurant in the East Village? What it all came together in this beautiful place. I highly recommend visiting Kisa. Tell me about it.
it was simple thought. So as we were operating CS and Charlie, honestly speaking, CS and Charlie's more of 80% American, maybe 20% or less Korean. At the time, it's only 2 years ago, so Korean food has been very, very been popular. It was very hot, trendy cuisine. I expected that everyone that came to Sis and Charlie must have tried the Korean food before, but I encountered many customers saying, "Hey, this is the first Korean restaurant I ever had and was amazing." And more I hear that, I felt very sorry about it because it's nothing really 100% Korean. So we're sitting down, we're saying, if we ever do a second restaurant, it should be 100% Korean, not in K Town. But it just we should speak about our roots, our heritage. So, we started from there. We wanted to do something very traditional in Korean, and I got married in Korea last year. I was able to go visit Korea back and forth for past 2 years. And a lot of those Korean casual restaurants, we call it 노포 식당. So it's owned by like mom and pops, 20, 30 years old restaurants are now disappearing. And now the younger restaurateurs are opening more of the Western cuisine or fine dining Korean. So I think, that trend totally makes sense. Surviving as those 노포 식당 in Korea is very difficult, especially now that previous owners are retiring. It's disappearing all of a sudden. So I realized, hey, if we bring this kind of concept to New York and make it work somehow, New York is like the capital of the world. So if we bring it to New York, make it work somehow, maybe next generation, even in Korea, might think it's cool and might continue on with this heritage. So we start off from that idea, and we were looking into 노포 식당, and boom, driver's restaurant, Kisa 식당 was, everyone in Korea thinks, the taxi drivers knows the best restaurant in town. So we follow the restaurants that taxi drivers go to in Korea. So we brought the concept right over to US.
I love it, and the format works so well to do these classic dishes, but doing it in your own way. Talk about the way the format works at Kisa.
Right. Like you have mentioned, in Korea, we have stuff we eat every season. Summer, we have to eat this. Fall, we have to eat this. Winter. So Korea, we're very like strict on what to eat during each season. So I wanted to kind of showcase that to USA. Here the land is really big. So of course there are some seasonal ingredients, but I feel like in Korea, relying on seasonal ingredients much more heavier. So we wanted to showcase a seasonal banchan according to Korea. So we started off with the banchan set during the spring. Now we actually released different set of banchan for summer season. And I don't want to say this for all restaurants, but some of the Korean restaurants I've been to, side dish works as a side dish. It's something on the side. So some of the side dish, when I taste it, sometimes it tastes funny because it could be a little bit old in the fridge. Um, but for me, or for most Koreans, we tell good restaurant by their banchan. When we go to a restaurant, like when we go to a 설렁탕 joint restaurant in Korea, the popular ones have better gakdugi than others.
Mm-hmm.
Not the soup; they're all really good.
Oh my gosh, the gakdugi, if you have it at the best Solentang spots in Seoul, you're going to have like big cauldrons of gakdugi
Right,
and like with scissors, and you're going
Right.
to have like one item on the menu. There's one in Itaewon that I know about, but man, I love the way that you channel this
Mhm.
ethic. I'm so happy you said that. Tell me a little bit about the panchans that you're serving right now at the restaurant.
Right now, so we recently changed it out to a summer season. So we started off with 닭곰탕, which is chicken soup made with chicken bone and chicken meat. In Korea, there's a word saying yeolchir, meaning you have to eat something hot when it's hot, something cold when it's cold. So it's a hot chicken soup with chive that are, supposed to bring down your heat. And also we have some cucumbers, also very summer ingredients in Korea, mixed with perilla seeds. We also have keranjang, which is soy marinated egg.
Ugh.
We have 동그랑땡, which is like the Korean meatball patty. What else do we have? We have gimmari, which is seaweed wrapped glass noodles, deep fried with the sweet and spicy sauce. So a lot of those ingredients are like the sides that you can find in Korean restaurants, and we chose the ones that will fit to summer season for now.
And the cost of entrance is like 35
$32.
32
Yep, before tip and tax.
before tip and tax, and you can get great sul and beers and all sorts of great drinks too. But like for New York City, this is like the steal of the century. And you're getting, of course, the panchan, but you're getting one of 4 entree choices too.
Right.
To each member of the table gets that entree, and then the panchan flows. It's
Right.
What are some of the entrees that are happening right now?
So we got bulgogi, thinly sliced marinated ribeye. We have 제육, which is spicy pork. We also have a spicy squid on the menu. And lastly, we have a bibimbap, not in a hot stone, but on a steel bowl. It's called pori bibimbap. So it's a barley bibimbap with the radish root kimchi. So
Yeah, I got to sample all of them. Onjio bokum is the squid is like my favorite.
Oh.
I love that one, and I honestly like all of it. And I feel like if you're gonna have a Korean meal in New York, you're gonna go to Kisa because you're getting a selection of these panchans. Like you mentioned many of them, and you're not gonna get it better in New York. The panchans.
thank you. Thank you, man. I mean, I really appreciate that you acknowledged it. We want it to be a restaurant that even if Koreans come in, they would agree that it's tasty. So we make all the kimchi, all the banchan in the house. Some of the key ingredients like sesame oil or perilla oil, chili pepper flake, we actually get it directly from Korea because the ones you get from here taste a little bit different. The chilies that grows in USA tastes a little different from ones that grows in Korea. So we really wanted to bring in like the traditional taste of Korea.
And you just opened lunch.
We did.
How does that work? Is it the same price?
Very good. It's been only 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's actually a different price. They're at $17 and $18. So in Korea, our Kisa is inspired by Taxi Driver Restaurant. For dinner, we have the platter set, which is 백반. But, there's actually different formats of Kisa 식당s in Korea. There could be like all-you-can-eat kind of style. There could be 백반 style. And also, there's one staple menu that if you go to Kisa 식당 in Korea that you can always find, which is 돈가스. 돈가스 is like the pork cutlet, fried, inspired by Japanese katsu. But that's a dish that all Korean taxi drivers have mostly. And a lot of the Korean customers that came to Kisa were asking, how come you don't have a 돈가스 on the menu? You call it Kisa 식당. So we're like,
Getting
okay.
that feedback from diners.
And we're like, all right, we're gonna show it to you very soon. So now we have the lunch opened, which is not served in 백반 style, but we want to show a different style of Kisa 식당. So we serve 감자탕, which is like the perfect hangover cure, the pork bone soup.
My God, that's I've said on the show many times and wrote in our first book, Korea World. That's Koreatown. That is my favorite.
Gamjatang.
Gamjatang is my favorite.
Oh
tang.
man, you have to come try the
I
gamjatang.
haven't had your gamjatang yet. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
We make big pot every day and we just sell it all and that's it.
I love it. So you're paying $17. You're walking in. You're getting gamjatang. You're getting a
Tonkatsu, yep.
tonkatsu. Yeah, I remember I was in Korea recently, or maybe a year or so ago, and I went to a Kisa that it was actually popping up in a barbecue restaurant,
Yep.
and they had myeongtang. That's all they had
Really?
on the menu, and it was like 10,000 won, and it was one dish, and people were just like flowing in, lots of cab drivers, lots of just people, and like the fact that you've opened lunch just gives me this impression that Kisa is so you're honoring this tradition in Korea in a way that you're not seeing in America. Even in LA, I'm sure there are Kisa style restaurants in LA, but man, I love this so much that you've actually opened a lunch
Hey,
service.
thank you. Yeah, we definitely want to show a different case, like a different style of Kisa 식당 in New York. And I think we've only showed about 60% of what we have to offer so far. So there's going to be a lot more fun stuff out there.
Zooming out a bit, let me ask you, you have a great sense of the way modern Korean food has been served in New York, and we've talked about it a lot on the show. But I'd like to get your sense of the direction we're heading in right now. At a pivotal time, there's a real saturation. I'm not going to say oversaturation, that'd be unfair. But there's a lot of Korean restaurants and a lot of talent here, more than ever. And definitely on the modern side, it's the best city in the country. Where do you see it going in 5 years?
I think it'll diverge into two different routes, casual and fine dining. Even in Korea, I think that's where it's headed to right now. So there's going to be a restaurant like us in casual format, and there's going to be fine dining format like Atomix or, Jungshik, which worked very well in both ways. And of course, there's style like Simon's, where he turned into Korean barbecue or Korean fried chicken into an upscale version. So there's always going to be different mix of everything, but way I see it, I feel like there's a lot more casual Korean restaurants happening nowadays in New York, like ours or Ari, the Busan style.
That's my number one guy right
Oh
there.
yeah,
I love
Ari is
Ari.
really good.
That's one of my favorite. Kisa is
And
now up there too.
another thing is now Korean food is, I think Korean restaurateurs focusing on the region of Korea. Like Ari per se is from Busan. Odore, which recently opened in East Village, they're focusing on Gangwon style. So I think now more and more restaurants are focusing on each province of Korea, so different parts of Korea. So I think that's very fun to watch. One day we're gonna have Jeolla province food here.
Oh yeah, we'll have Jeju-do at some
Exactly,
point. There'll be a Jeju restaurant. How's Oldre? I've wanted to go and I haven't made it down there. Tell me, what's the scene report?
I've never got the chance to
Yeah.
try the odreso, but I know the chef Chang-ki there.
Yeah.
He's one of my good friends. I think he is right in the middle where it's not fine dining, it's not casual, but he turned it into an upscale Korean, which kind of all disappeared at some point, I feel like. But he also provided a set menu like Kisa, which I think works perfectly in this kind of generation. But he's offering a set menu with a little bit of banchan that he showcases. Great concept.
I love it. Audrey, I'm going to have to hit that up. And I love that he's doing Gangwon-do cuisine.
Yeah. Odre means, I think, welcome
Yeah.
in Gangwon-do world. So.
It's so cool, man. It's like 5 years from now, I think we're going to have a totally different landscape. There'll be more restaurants that specialize in region. I believe you're right. And also, I just think that more chefs are going to just start cooking with the Cia's and Charlie ethic, like this idea of like taking Southern roots, taking Mexican roots, taking
Right.
Chinese, Korean, and blending it up in a cool way.
I love to see all that. There's so many Korean immigrants out in the different countries. So I love to see all that. It'll be fun.
So, what's your dream concept for this group that's growing? You went from 1 to 2 in 3 years. I gotta imagine you're probably thinking about some other ideas, maybe not.
So honestly, I think right now is not our time yet. We're getting there. Maybe in 5 years, maybe 4 years, our time might come. But I think right now it's our way of our seniors, senior alumni like Simon Kim or Kian of Han Hospitality. So they pioneered the Korean restaurant industry into a next level. I think our time will come in about 4 or 5 years, but my goal eventually, I wanted to show something different as well, different path like Simon or Kian did. Since I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, I actually lived in Portland. I lived in Salisbury, so I live in different parts of USA. And what I realized is that there's always Chinese restaurants, Japanese restaurants, and Thai restaurants in Mostly all in the United States, even in like the parts of USA that not a lot of Koreans live, but you couldn't really find Korean restaurants at the time. Even now, all the Korean cuisine has been really popular. I'm pretty sure if you go to North Dakota, Alabama, there's going to be cities that not much people know about Korean food. So I want to be able to make a concept that can work in those kind of city. So that's eventually my goal, my
Wow.
end game. But
Broad strokes mood board.
yes,
What are you thinking? Is there like
there's, I think there could be, like, let's say Korean fried chicken is a good concept that
Yeah.
could work in, those kind of city. Kimbap is another type of concept that could work in that kind of city. So I think, if I think about Kisa, I'm not too confident that it'll work in North Dakota or Alabama. But if you think about Korean fried chicken, it's more approachable. So, I'm still looking, I'm still learning
Yeah.
as I go on. So hopefully I'll find the right concept to, open up that could branch out to all those cities. And, I want to have Korean cuisine all on those parts in the United States one day.
I love it. I can't wait to see what your future holds. And go to Kisa now that's open for lunch. I'm super excited. Definitely dinner. You're on Resi.
Yes, we're on Resi.
That's nice.
Yes, finally.
Finally.
I've seen a lot of guests. Having the line was great. At first we did that just because there's some restaurants I really wanted to go, but for some reason I can never make reservation. Like Four Horsemen,
Yeah.
I wanted to go. Never can I can find reservation, but if it's walk-in only, I thought that hey, at least if you wait a couple hours, you will get in. The
Yeah.
other side of it, there are some people that couldn't wait online, like elders or people out of town. So that's why we made the decision to make reservation open for the public. So
Do you hold some back for the line too, or is it a reservation only?
5 o'clock is only by the walk-in.
Very nice.
We take reservation after 6 o'clock only. So
All right, that's the hot tip. Show up at 5. I love it. I feel like the line will continue. David, on This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
okay, let's do it.
The best fruit.
Best fruit, Korean melon in summer season.
Oh my gosh,
The yellow Korean melon, as you might already know, chame.
Yeah, tell me, how do you serve it?
Oh, you have to cut up the peel, and you cut it half and just slice it. But so there's the inner part of the melon. There's a controversy whether you eat that or whether you don't eat that. I eat the seeds actually, so that's the way I would do it.
I like the guts too. I think like why waste it?
Yeah, some people say your stomach might get hurt a little bit, but mine was okay.
You're
at the
rolling
time,
with
so.
it. The worst vegetable.
I would say cooked carrot in a food. Like, let's say if you have cooked carrot in a chicken noodle soup or like Japanese curry, you can only taste that carrot. In my opinion, so carrot.
Well said. We've never had that one. I think that there are carrot lovers out there, but also when it just floats that sugary sweet.
Yeah, it's not my favorite.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm buying. I like that one. The best dessert.
Recently, I had the key lime pie at Gallagher Steakhouse. It was pretty good.
Oh,
it was really good, actually.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I did not expect it at all. Dessert from Gallagher Steakhouse, but their key lime pie was really good.
I mean, key lime and Korean food matches.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. It's very citrusy. It's very umami. Like, I love it.
Totally. Great call. All right, your favorite New York City restaurant right now?
It's going to be another Korean one, to be honest. I would say Okdongshik.
Yeah.
Okdongshik has to be my favorite restaurant.
Solid. What about your favorite Korean restaurant outside of New York? It doesn't have to be here. It could be in Atlanta.
Let me think.
Did I throw you? Do you want to just do New York? Is that better?
Yeah, I mean, I think I should have given you a different restaurant
It's
for, I guess.
It's okay. It's okay.
All right, when I went to LA, there was Agashi Gopchang. There's one in New York right now, but in LA, there's Agashi Gopchang. That place is fire. That place is just...
Dude, gopchang is like one of those like intestines and sometimes stomach and on the grill with a little sesame oil.
Uh-huh. Oh my, there was a very different. I think it's even better than ones in Korea, in fact.
Have you hit up Young Mani in LA ever? Do you know that
No,
spot?
I haven't got to actually. I heard a lot of good things about it, but never got a chance to.
That spot's super good. And I have to ask, I forgot to mention, did you grow up going to Yette in Atlanta?
Where?
Yette? Yette? Is that the right way of saying it?
I'm not too sure.
It's in Doraville, I think.
Honestly, I came here right after high school when I was like,
Oh, word. So
like
you're
19, so yeah,
you were
might have,
doing
yeah.
all right, we'll cut that one, Clayton. Let's move that one out. All right, we'll keep going. Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
I would say go to Jeolla province in Korea. So, I came to USA when I was 10. So, for me, I'm pretty new to Korea as much as other tourists, that are going to go to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to Jeolla province, you're going to taste real Korean food. Like, especially I would say Yeosu. Yeosu had the best raw crab that I ever had with gatgimchi. Like Korean, I think it's some green mustard.
Yeah.
Kimchi made with that. Oh my God. It was one of the best thing I ever had.
I love that. Jeolla is such a beautiful place.
Oh yeah, for
The
sure.
food there is so great.
Even for Koreans, I think food in Jeolla is very well known as being very tasty and very with different varieties. So
Yeah, we get to spend a little time there. We write about it in our book, Korea World.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
All right. It's gonna be Chick-fil-A #1. It's classic, but that's something I always have it in New York as well. Honestly speaking, Chick-fil-A here does not taste the same as ones in Atlanta, Georgia, but it tastes. It's something I can have a little bit of Southern in New York. So chicken
Well
sandwich,
said.
Chick-fil-A.
Chicken sandwiches. And you guys do a good one too at Ciaz and Charlie sometimes.
Oh yeah, we do pop up for chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chick-fil-A is very classic.
You know your way around a chicken sandwich, my man. David, so great to catch up with you. Thank you for joining this.
Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it.
Meher Singh, welcome to This Is Taste. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thanks for having me.
It's a real pleasure. First time we've met, but you've written for Taste, and I wanted to have you in to talk about this amazing reporting you did for a recent story about young cheesemakers around the world. But first off, where are you eating in New York? You're out on the scene. You're writing for all sorts of publications and covering restaurants. What's good to you right now?
So, New York, historically, huge oyster town, but I feel like we might be in the golden age of seafood in New York.
Yes.
Whether it's Penny and their icebox, so you can try a little bit of everything. Smithereens from Nick Tamburo, Cloud Alum, fantastic. They do a barbecue monkfish, which I haven't had before.
Oh my gosh.
And this hot fried fish collar, just perfection. And later this month, Crevette from the team behind Dame and Lords is opening, and it's easily one of the most anticipated openings of the year.
100%. They're opening a third spot. What do you think of? What do you think is going to go down at this restaurant?
So this is exclusively seafood, from what I understand.
Yeah.
It's on 10 Downing Street, so just poetic justice right there.
Yeah, fun.
So I can't wait for that to open. I've written about Chimansky in the past. I think he makes the best Scotch egg around anywhere.
Yeah.
And the second thing that's top of mind for me is Vietnamese bakeries. Lala Bake Shop in the East Village recently opened. They do this chiffon cake with the salted egg yolk frosting.
Oh, wow.
And they do this honeycomb cake, which is almost like a cannelle in texture. It's just fantastic.
So, Meher, what draws you to restaurants, for your own joy, but also just for reporting, for when you're looking for a story?
That's a great question. So I come from a restaurant family. Both my parents own this Mediterranean cafe in Delhi. And it was one of the first back then when they opened. So I grew up cooking. I grew up in a restaurant kitchen. I remember doing things like filling branzino back when I was before I was even writing, really. And I think with restaurants specifically, they're so deeply personal to me. And with chefs, we're seeing all their beautiful creations, but their faces are not necessarily front and center.
Yeah.
So it's just gratifying to me to tell their stories and where they're coming from.
When you started writing about chefs, how did your family business and the industry you grew up living in, how did that affect you and how you report? I feel like it's an amazing opportunity that you know the industry. It's cool.
Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
I think food journalism is dramatically different in India, and we're not really talking about chefs unless they're on Asia's 50 Best or they have a Michelin. I think that's changing a bit more now. There's, Goya Journal and all these fantastic small publications covering food media now. But I think it was kind of the opposite, how, I started my career here covering restaurants, and then I went back home and wanted to write about all these chefs and all these incredible bartenders that, you know the name of the restaurant, but you don't know the name of the chef.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to keep reading your work, and we're going to go over a number of stories that you've written for Taste and Outside. But I really wanted to have you in to talk about this new piece that we just published this week. You profile a number of young cheesemakers, and it was an incredible job in getting all these voices into the piece. And I'm going to link to in the show notes. Please read it. So off the jump, what made you want to write about this younger generation of cheesemaker?
So for me, it started with the cheese cutting videos on TikTok where people were pairing La Tour, which is like a sheep's brie-style cheese, with sour gummy worms and nuts clusters. And I didn't, I was fixated. It had this almost mukbang-like quality where you can't look away. And I didn't immediately realize that these are young people until I saw that video of cows jamming to Taylor Swift with Kaylee and her siblings. I think that's kind of when I discovered that, I think there's something going on here. And I think this generation is obviously infusing a lot of fun and energy into the business, but they're so serious about it, and they take their craft so seriously. And yeah, it's a tough business.
Of course, and the business has very low margins. It's not, a job that you would take on to make a lot of money. You have to love the craft. When in interviewing all of these cheesemakers, did you get a sense that they were maybe creating a new style or thinking about older styles in a new way? I mean, we're hearing about the way they market their cheeses in a clever way using social media, but what about the actual cheese?
Of course, I do agree with you. The marketing aspect, it has this. They use this high-low format, which I think is so approachable, right? Nerds clusters and jawbreakers even. Well, you shave it with a microplane, but it's the whole thing. But the cheese itself, Vito Di Cecca comes to mind. He's been making his Amore Primitivo, 15 years ago is when he came up with it. We've known for years that, cheese and fruit works so well together, be it cheddar and apple pie or just like the pantheon of fruit compotes and chutneys on a charcuterie board. But I feel like younger people are bringing a real sense of adventure and just going for it,
Very cool. Let's stick with Vito. He's an interesting guy. I've actually got to meet him last summer in Puglia, and I got to try some of his cheeses. But he's making these cheese wedding cakes and these celebratory cakes using these marinated cured cherries. Talk us through what Vito is doing with these very TikTok-friendly creations.
So I guess when I first heard cheese wedding cake, I thought, wow, you can do that? And if you think about it, chefs and bakers are already pushing the envelope, right? You see these massive flat slab wedding cakes. A wedding pavlova doesn't even have to be a cake. And so why not cheese? So, his Amore Primitivo was way ahead of its time. He says in the piece that, an elder scolding him, saying, Vito, it's not a pastry shop. And, there's a Nika whiskey, blue cheese with candied figs from his mother's garden. And it's just a true shift that we're seeing happen now.
Yeah, it's cool. Definitely check him out on Instagram. All the links are in the piece. I'm going to link to the piece in the show notes. So Kayla Firstenow is a 26-year-old cheesemonger at Hilldale Metcalf's, a specialty grocer in our favorite town, Madison, Wisconsin. We got to go there. Love that city. She went to the Harvard of cheesemaking, which is an interesting way to frame this school. What did you learn about Kayla?
Yeah, so, cheese technologist was not a part of my lexicon until I reported on this. And CSU, Cheese State University, which is the Harvard of cheesemaking, like you said, it's, a 5-hour program, which doesn't seem intimidating. But the bar to be eligible and get in is pretty high because you need to be a seasoned cheesemaker or cheesemonger and have that sort of demonstrated expertise, which, Kayla naturally had. One of the things she brought up was that the industry has this constellation of tiny makers, and they usually know each other, and how it's such a safe space for women and queer people. And Kayla, along with other sources, reached out to me after the piece. And, this is maybe the most gratifying part about being a writer, where they were so happy that they found each other, because there are Gen Z people making cheese, but, they're not necessarily getting as much representation as, a bigger company like the Rijakas, for instance.
Very, very good point. And I really loved that kind of element in your reporting about how young cheesemakers are building community with each other, and how, with queer cheesemakers finding community through the craft, but also through the queer community is something that is going to grow as more folks take the Harvard of Cheese course, or wherever cheese is being made. And I think I'd like to hear about, what is it about this generation that kind of, and the idea that this generation, this young generation, is embracing ancient crafts. What do they bring that maybe the older cheesemakers aren't seeing in production?
Right. So, I feel like they're using cheese as a complete blank canvas. Even for me, I'm a millennial. When I think of cheese, I think of wine, and I think of pairings and stuffier renditions than what they're presenting. They're not as concerned about, oh, will this sell, or does this have mass appeal? They're thinking about it in terms of, how far can we go with this? What else can we put into it? What things taste good together, and how do we incorporate cheese into that rather than serving these things alongside cheese?
It's so well said. It's like, fuck the rules. Like,
Yeah.
we're doing what we want to do.
And why not? Because if you think about it, cheese was invented as an accident. What's the worst thing that can happen if your cheese sucks?
That is great. That's such a good point. Meher, did you, when you were reporting the story, did you just want to eat more cheese? Like, because and editing the story and working with you, I was like looking around my fridge, and I had sad. It was like sad face. But did you get to try some cheeses?
I think I always want to eat more cheese. I will say that reporting on this piece made my Trader Joe's Roquefort or whatever a lot less enticing, especially if it's up against Vito's cheese or, Kaylee's cheese. And something Madeline said really stuck out to me, that everyone, at least once in their life, deserves to have access to incredible cheese, right? Because you'll take yourself out for a celebratory meal. Why can't you have celebratory cheese?
Well said. And when you're celebrating New York, do you have a favorite place that you're buying cheese at in New York? Do you go out to any of the spots?
It's a bit of a commute, but I love Bedford Cheese Shop down in the West Village, Gramercy.
Yeah, it's a great store. Good rec there. Let's move on and talk about another piece you wrote for Taste, the state of the Caesar salad. I think Eliza and I maybe brought this to you, or maybe you pitched it. I can't remember, but we've been talking about Caesars for a while, and we wanted to really write a definitive taste piece, and you really did that. I'm gonna link to the show notes. I think like we came at it like there's a lot of Caesar salad content out there. There was a big anniversary recently. What did you find out about the state of the Caesar?
So first, you mentioned how this idea came about. I think it was a real group project.
Yeah.
In that I pitched it as, Caesar salads having a resurgence, and people are putting things like kimchi and pickled pig ears into it. It wasn't, we worked around it, we workshopped it, and then we realized, why are people not stopping talking about this? Like,
Right.
why is it so inescapable? It was such a wild ride. I think one thing that sticks out to me is that so many people I spoke with had trouble precisely defining why it's their favorite salad. And like Sung, the former Savour editor, said that a plurality of Americans are only now realizing that it contains anchovies. So, it could be, maybe that it's an umami bomb of a salad. But that's not quite the full picture, because, you have things like cobs and other salads that are also super savory. I think just the mass appeal has a lot to do with the fact that the Caesar, at least to my knowledge, was the first dressing to be packaged and mass sold, at least the first creamy dressing, because prior to that, you would have a simple green salad with olive oil or something like that. But yeah, the Caesar is just sort of everywhere. It's a lot more approachable than the Cobb. It's easier to veganize. And I didn't mention this in the piece, but if you were to go to Dubai or Delhi or Singapore, if you go to an Italian restaurant, there will definitely be a Caesar on the menu,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's not quite Italian. And the server will almost definitely recommend it to you.
Yeah, when we were going over that piece, we definitely shift energies a little bit because it was, yes, there is a resurgence, but the why was answered, as you said clearly. It is one of the first bottle dressings, and I also just will add that Caesar is one of those. It's like we're conditioned as American diners, to think of the Caesar as this always good. Like I feel like, and please, like this is a conversation. I'm like, there's like this idea that there isn't a bad Caesar
Hmm.
because of the umami bomb, because of possibly the anchovies. Not really the case. But did you find the ubiquity was maybe just our conditioning as diners?
Conditioning for sure, but I will say that if you were to put Caesar dressing on a boot and eat it, it would also taste good.
So true.
I think just the popularity has a lot to do with the fact that the Caesar is a household name, kind of like Xerox or Uber. It's the Uber of salads, and it's hard to beat that.
That is the line of the episode. Great. The Uber of salads. So well said. Let's move on to a piece you wrote for New York Magazine about Bungalow. And they worked on this cocktail that you're going to tell us about for months and months, and you followed them. I would love to get a sense of also Bungalow as a restaurant. I know I've had a lot of people on the show who want to go there. I've not been, so I have no firsthand experience, but I'd like to go. And it seems to me that this restaurant is really it's a moment right now, and Indian food is having an absolute moment. Bungalow is one of many great restaurants. But first off, tell us a little bit about this cocktail reporting.
For sure. So this was early last year, I think, when the piece came out. And milk punches have been having a moment for the past year, 2 years. Every bar has at least one clarified item now, and that was not the case 3 years ago, right? Super Bueno, one of the best bars in the country, does a sour plum and tamarind edition. There's Jela's right by Union Square that only does milk punches. It's a small bar with something like 13 seats. With Bungalow, the cocktail is called Chai Pani, which translates to milk tea.
Yeah.
It's like a loose translation. And I'll admit I was really skeptical at first because it's not the first time a South Asian restaurant's doing a chai-based cocktail. You have chai teenies, all these other delicious drinks. But they're never quite great because I think so much of the emphasis is on the spirit rather than the chai or the technique. With the Bungalow Chai Pani, the owners almost gave up on this cocktail because there was so much trial and error. So firstly, finding the right chai, they sourced all kinds of teas from all over the subcontinent, made their own house blend just for this cocktail. They first tried brewing the tea with milk as is traditional in South Asia, realized that did not work well for clarification, so they brewed the tea separately. This is sacrilegious in South Asian culture, not adding milk to your brewed tea, and it all came together. It takes about 36 hours to prepare from start to finish, and yeah, it's a real feat. I think my favorite thing about the cocktail is just the attention to detail, right? Because on the glass there's a swipe of this Parle-G and milk crumble, and Jaya wrote a fantastic piece for Taste about
Love that piece.
Parle-G, these Indian biscuits that just remind me of childhood. And also the dehydrated milk powder is just a huge, if you know, you know. Everyone who grew up in the South Asia, in the global South, we would eat fistfuls of it from the bag. It was just great.
Yeah. And about the restaurant too.
Oh, right.
When you're dining there, what's a meal like at Bungalow, and how can you square this incredible, I would say, exposure and popularity to South Asian cuisine in New York through this wonderful restaurant?
I think South Indian food specifically has finally arrived in New York, and for years, it was all butter chicken and garlic naan, and it's not really a good representation of South Asian food, or even how South Asians eat. What's so special about Bungalow is, obviously Vikas Khanna, great chef, with a really inspiring personal story, but it's the first South Asian restaurant in New York that serves dishes from all over India, because, there is Dhamaka and all those restaurants, but they predominantly lean towards the north. And then you have something like a Kanyakumari, also a great restaurant, but that focuses specifically on certain coastal states. Bungalow is just like a good journey throughout India. There's a lot of great vegan dishes. Like, for example, there's a pineapple curry stewed in coconut milk. Great. There's a yogurt kebab, which is, all these things you don't really find in New York. And I think for so long, London was sort of the champion when it came to Indian restaurants, right? We still don't have something like a gymkhana in New York. But recently, Passerine opened in Gramercy from the former Sona team. And I think that comes pretty close, both in ambience and in terms of the menu.
I can't wait to go to Bungalow. You've really gotten me excited. And last but not least, I wanted to talk to you about a piece you wrote for Eater, Akabanga chili oil. It is you call it's Rwandan chili oil. That's with air quotes when you wrote me about this piece, and I'm linking to it in the show notes. Fascinating product. What did you learn about this? The cooking with this product.
Right. So just the thought of akabanga makes my mouth water.
Yeah.
Because it's a chili oil, but it's unlike any other chili oil you've had, right? It's not like a Japanese rayu or a Sichuan chili oil. It has this inherent smokiness and meatiness, almost like sautéed mushrooms. So,
Wow.
It works beautifully with, whether you're making like a meaty lasagna asugo or, an Indian lamb curry. It just brings so much flavor. And it's sold in these tiny eyedropper bottles because it's incendiary. It's incendiary.
Yeah.
It's so spicy, like you need to use it with caution. And it's a super fascinating origin story as well.
And is there one brand? Is it like a category? I'm not familiar with the product.
So there's something called urusenda, which is common throughout sub-Saharan Africa, mostly East Africa. And it's this condiment with scotch bonnet peppers, vinegar, and oil. And this street stall vendor called Sina Gerard, we're in 1980s Kigali. He's a street vendor selling mandozi, which are these savory donuts. And he wanted to come up with a sauce. So he basically blended this urusenda, which is almost like a deconstructed hot sauce, if you will, and made it so spicy where I think initially it was shock value. And I think other brands also make it, but Akabanga is sort of the Heinz of the urusenda world, if you will.
It's the brand Akabanga, and you could probably order that online. Of course, go to your local market and find it.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Wonderful. What are you working on now? Like, I don't want to spoil any show, but writing wise, we got to get you on a taste story. That's for sure. But what are you working on?
I'm writing a guide to one of the most historic neighborhoods in the city, which has always been associated with certain foods. And I'm writing about how that's completely changed over the past 5 years. And another piece I'm writing about is an exploration of this Chinese-American classic that's having a moment. I can't tell you what it is.
No, you're not going to tell me any of this because, it's for other publications. And we will be linking to it in our Friday newsletter when it comes out. But I can't wait. Your journalism is incredible, and I can't wait to work with you on another piece. Meher, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
This Is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.